think we're, Nancy, if you can hear us, we're ready to go live whenever you are.
Can you hear me, Doug?
Yes.
You've got an echo.
Let's try this.
Try speaking again.
Is this any better?
So we're good to go?
You're still. Now we've got an echo again.
One last try.
How's this?
We can't hear Nancy. Can you turn up Nancy?
You want to try one more time?
One more time.
Yeah, should we turn that one off? Hey, Jackson, yeah, if we turn that one on.
This one is on.
Oh, it is, oh, it is, oh, it is, oh, it is, oh, it is.
There it is.
Let's try this.
We can't hear Nancy though. Like I can hear she's coming in through in there, but not out here.
Try speaking.
Is this any better? I'm getting nods but no audio from participants.
It says not hearing anything, turn off.
And then we get that feedback.
Sounds great on our end.
Oh, we heard Chris.
Yeah.
No.
Can you-
Here we go.
We got it. Good
I think
job.
we're there.
Maybe.
Good job.
Thank you. Okay.
Are we
I think
good?
I think we've got it.
Okay, terrific. I'd like to call a meeting to order, the City of Winona Plan Commission, Monday, March 11th. Could you please call the roll?
Chair Moore,
Here?
Alder DePula,
Here.
Mr. Homburg,
Here.
Mr. Stein, here, Ms. Fox,
Here,
Ms. Fallett,
Here.
Mr. Grice,
Here.
and Mr. Chapman is excused.
Thank you. With that, I'll move to the approval of minutes from February 26, 2024. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Move approval. Second.
Do I have a second? Any changes, corrections, additions to the minutes? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The minutes carry. Is there anyone here this evening that is here to appear on something that is not on the agenda? Not part of the two public hearings that we have tonight? Okay, then we'll close the appearance. Doug, do you have anything via email or anything that I should know about?
No, we have some registered for applications, but nothing, nobody here for anything that's not on the agenda.
Okay, terrific, thank you. With that, we'll go to unfinished business, of which there is none, so we'll move on to new business number 7A, public hearing on the request by Harlan LLC for consideration of a zoning permit for construction of a new 20-unit multifamily residential building at 4111 and 4113 Monona Drive, case number 2-004-2024. This is the public hearing portion, so I will have the applicant first provide us with any presentation regarding this development. that they would like to share not only with this commission, but also with the public at large, since these are recorded meetings. And then if there's anyone else that would like to speak during the public hearing portion of this, they're more than welcome to do so. Who is here to present on behalf of Harlan LLC? You could start by stating your name when you speak, stating your name and your affiliation with Harlan. That would be terrific. Welcome.
I'm Jesse Biller. I am the owner of the property at 4111 and 4113 Monona Drive.
Jason Pusto, Plunkett Rasich Architects, or the architects and group that put together the submission information.
Nick Puchaz, PRA as well.
Thank you. Terrific. The floor is yours, gentlemen.
I believe everybody's
if you
got and hopefully has reviewed the information that's within the submission packet that we put together. This is our initial submission, initial preliminary hearing for the potential project at the address that was listed previously. What is being proposed is a apartment building, as noted, 20 units. Site is approximately a half acre, and we're including a mix of various units from studios to 2 bedrooms, and then all the parking other than a few spaces at the street will be enclosed on both the lower level on the first floor. You can see that in the floor plans that we submitted. Unit mix currently is a mix of studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms scattered about the various floors. Parking requirement is exceeded by 1, so we have, as I mentioned, a couple exterior parking spaces, 2 drive spaces, and the like. Siting on the site has been based on a prior survey done, so I think we're fairly accurate, but I would, as noted, we will need a final survey. Green space, we exceed the requirements, and that's to the property line. There's certainly green space that exists between the property line at the lakeside and to the lake. And then, of course, to the current water level. And then you can see also in the site plan, we're planning for some preliminary rain gardens to address storm drainage, and then some privacy landscape to address the property to the north.
Excuse me, but Doug, might be possible, again, because this is not only a public hearing, but this is also a recorded meeting, could we perhaps share hosting so that we can see the drawings as they're being discussed?
I can pull up a copy of the meeting packet and can kind of run through pages.
That'd be great. That'd be great. I just think it's important to be able to see as they're talking about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. So as requested, here's the site plan that's been established for the site preliminarily. And you can see, as I referenced off of Monona Drive, the 2 drives to go to the 2 different parking areas, the 2 exterior parking spaces, and then facing the lake would be a series of outdoor patios, both for the units, balconies above, and then a pier and some sort of outdoor space, fire pit, and the like. The exact design of that is to be developed yet. Doug, if you could go to the next page, please. Thank you. Lowest level of the building that's proposed is predominantly parking with some building storage, and then also some space for mechanical, plumbing, and those types of equipment that would be needed for a building of this type. The first floor or street level floor would consist of a couple studio units to the north, and then some additional indoor parking spaces to the south, along with an amenity space that we're calling kayak storage, paddleboard storage, that type. And then you can also see there's some areas for dumpsters, a lobby, and then a small fitness area, amenity space for the building itself. The unit mix varies on the upper floors, but there's an additional 3 floors of units that exist, and some have balconies that face the lake. There's also potentially a roof balcony that may or may not face the street that we've noted there. The 2nd through 4th are identical, and then the top floor would have some larger units, 2-bedroom units with some larger balcony spaces on them. The only other thing that we've assembled for this preliminary hearing is a conceptual elevation of what the building might look like from Monona Drive. So that would be the front or street elevation that you're seeing on the screen now. A mix of materials from brick to some composite siding to some composite panels. The design of the building, I think it's in contemporaneous with a lot of the other apartment buildings that are in the general neighborhood. Obviously, we've also considered the Monona Drive guidelines when establishing this design, but trying to create something that's somewhat harmonious to the other similar developments that are both up the street on the lakeside and up the street on the non-lake side. Overall building is roughly 55 feet high from the street. Other than that, I don't have anything else to add.
And what is that, and that 55 feet that you've referenced, could you share with us how that compares to the other multi-family units that are nearby?
I don't have exact height information on both those developments, but I would say this. There's a condo building that's maybe 3 parcels up from this. We are shorter than that, and then there's the apartment building that's maybe 1/8 of a mile up from there, and we are taller than that. It's about the best I can offer.
Thank you. Anybody else want to speak during the public hearing portion regarding this
We,
applicant or regarding this zoning permit? Anyone else here want to speak?
we do have, yes, we do have some people in the room. I have a couple forms. There is a notepad kind of circulating through the room. If you would like to speak, we ask that you fill that out. Submit that and we'll call you forward during this public hearing section. I have a couple here. I'm not sure if anybody else would like to speak. I can run through those. Well, we have one who would like to speak for informational purposes only, and that is Dale at 4107 Monona Drive.
Yeah.
Would you like to come forward, please?
Sure. Okay, I just have a couple questions. I'm not against the program. I'm not for it. I have some questions. One, you have it on a half an acre lot and you're putting 20 units in there. It's a lot of units in a small area, considering some of the other lots that I've seen on your other, in the area. You're really squeezing them in there. I also have a question about when you get the parking stalls and you're below the street level, are you going to be below the lake level? If you are, how close? Are you building towards the lake? Are you beyond the meander line? Other things like how close are you going to be to the neighbors and to the retention basin that's on the south of you? You do need probably 10 feet, I would think, for ambulances, fire trucks to get by, or at least get down there if it does have a problem. The other thing is that where did you plan on putting your equipment to build this? And 5 stories, because you're 5 stories from where the street goes up, is awfully high. I live next door to a condominium, and they had at least, they're 5 stories, but they're 5 stories in the center. It makes the sides of the property not so intrusive, is what I think that this might be. Also, how close to the street are you going to be? You're going to be, you know, just a few feet. Those are a few questions that I have about the property. I also noticed that Monona Drive has a lot of traffic on it now. And we're going to be putting more traffic on it. Also, I live around the corner from the stoplight, and if you ask the police department, they know the cars come up through there. They sit up at the school. They have no problems of getting people picking them up for speeding along the school zone. As all you people know, it's pretty fast in there. But that's another story of another deal. But you're putting a lot of traffic on there. I'm just letting you know that. That's
Okay.
about all I have to say.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak during the public hearing portion?
We have Marianne Litchfield, 4109 Monona Drive, would like to speak for informational purposes only. She's coming forward.
Okay, thank you.
Thank God I've got Dale on my side here. I am not against this project either. However, I do live right next door. I am wondering just a few things. How can you build something that's going to be 5 stories? Where do you put your cranes and all of that stuff? I mean, there's not very much room there. I also would like to know if you can do anything about the lake shore. If you guys are wanting to put in a pier, a boat, we're going to have to clean up the lake shore, which is a horrible mess, as you probably know. And we're having a hard time with the county and the DNR with that. With the traffic, like Dale said, even though we have bike paths, believe me, people, the bikes don't always go on the bike path. They use the sidewalk frequently. And how wide is each lot? Do you have 50-foot lots? Can I ask a question, or am I just supposed to say what I want and be quiet? Hi, Nancy, thank you.
Yeah, Marianne, you're welcome to ask the question and questions. Anyone is welcome to during the public hearing section, and hopefully the gentleman sitting at the table will respond to some of those questions once you've had a chance to finish up.
Okay, one thing else I would like to ask. As I recall, I've lived in this house for 52 years. At one time, there was a concrete bunker. Are you guys aware of that? Voigts lived there from Voigts Concrete, and they built a bunker. Now, my house is plaster. When they go to break up all that concrete, if it's still there, maybe it came down with the yellow house. I don't know. But my house is going to be in jeopardy, as my boathouse. And I've just put a lot of money into the boathouse. So those are all questions that I would like you guys to come over to my house and walk me through this. I'm by myself, you know, Dick is gone, Kathy Thomas is gone, so thank God I have Dale that can help me with this, and I'm hoping all you can too. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else here to speak? Doug?
We have somebody coming forward. I don't have a form, but I'll.
I did actually write my.
Oh, yes.
I wasn't going to speak. But
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Paul Charlier. I'm one of the condo residents at 4101 Monona Drive. I'm actually on the condo board. Actually, our president's on the Zoom call, and our treasurer's right here. So we have great interest in this project and our neighbors next door. So a couple of the questions already have been hit. Certainly one of the big ones is around the lake shore and the horrible, horrible state it is in now, and with the lower lake level. Al and I, Kathy, had gone to the DNR and to the county. The mayor was there as part of it. It's a dead end as far as we got with them. It's just unbelievable. And just so you guys know, that was a swamp 100 years ago in the wetlands, and it's going back to being wetlands again. So any plans you have for that, we'd love to have it dredged again, but good luck. We've hit a dead end. A couple other things, especially on Mary Ann's side, what's the setback going to be, and what is the step back? It looks like it's a straight 5-story wall. Dale pointed out in our condo on the side of his house is actually 4 stories, and then it goes to 5 in the center. It's also, there's a lot of empty space because we don't take up every square inch of the property. So there's big patios in the front on the lakeside. So there's a lot of open space, despite the fact that in the middle it is 5 stories. So something to be considered. I'd hate to live right next door to a wall that goes up that high, depending. It doesn't appear that there's any kind of step back on the sides. One thing we noticed, we were out today, that we didn't even see any fire hydrant even near this property. So I assume you guys were gonna have to pay to have a fire hydrant put in, because we saw nothing except at the corner of Buckeye and Monona Drive. So that's something you guys should be looking at. And parking. We know that it sounds like it's within whatever the rules are, but that sure seems like not enough parking for 20 units. I have a hunch that they'll start to use the plaza across the street for parking, and I'm sure those owners of that businesses will not like that. And let's see, setback shoreline. I think that's it, Joanne. Anything else? No? Okay, that is it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Doug?
I have no more forms. I see that we've got a couple folks on the Zoom call. Is there anybody else in the room that would like to speak on this item?
And would you like to speak? Okay. That would be a yes. The Thompsons would like to speak.
They're muted still.
There we go.
Go
You
right
have
ahead.
audio? Yes, my name is Alan May. I'm the president of the Waterfront Place Condominium Owners Association. Also on the board, Paul Charlier, who spoke a few moments ago. My two main concerns are, number one, the traffic. If anyone has taken any time observing what happens in that area, where the light exists, people fly through that intersection, and because it's a curve, they pick up speed going around past our property and Dale's and Mary Ann's. And where this building is contemplated, I just want you to know, if you don't have sight lines, I believe you have an impending hazard of great proportion because, again, the speed is far in excess of the posted limit there. The other concern I have, as has been stated, but I believe if you collected data, you would see that this is only going to aggravate that issue, is the lakeshore. We are fighting a battle with powers that simply do not understand how critical it is with the muck and the debris that accumulates along the shore. Now, I think it's relevant to better understand how you intend to construct the shoreline, not only for erosion purposes, but for control of that muck. What's relevant is that retention pond. If in any way that's compromised, the value and the positive benefits of having that there will end up leading to more of that muck coming into the adjoining properties. But similarly, with the increased use of this newly proposed property, anything that happens there will affect us. There are collateral impacts. When our neighbors do anything with the muck or when the weather changes, it all shifts back and forth. So if with this new property, that creates more muck there, we will end up inheriting it at some point just through natural and man-made impacts in the area. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Anyone else? Are we good, Doug?
Nobody else in the room that I can see.
Great. Before we close the public hearing section, would the gentleman who started this public hearing like to respond to the individuals, not to the individuals, but to the commission regarding some of the issues that have been raised?
Thank you, Nancy. I was going to ask if I could do that. I heard a number of comments. I tried to kind of write them down as I heard them, but wanted to try to address a few of the kind of design-specific items that we can as an architect. So I heard a series of questions relative, or comments relative to the setbacks. So our setbacks are 30 feet from the right-of-way to the front of the building. So off the street, let's call it more like 38, 39 feet between the sidewalk and a little bit of green space that exists. Side setbacks, both at the side to the retention pond and the side to the single-family residence, are 10 foot. We believe those to be within the guideline requirements. And we are roughly 30 feet from the floodplain line to the meandering line, and that doesn't accommodate any of the building footprint. So we're outside of that. From the lake level, and we'll get to that in a second, we're probably, frankly speaking, 70, 80 feet from the water where it currently sits right now, if not more. So that's the setback question. I heard some comments about step back. Currently, we're not planning any variation in the building as far as a setback. There would be a variation of materials as shown in the conceptual elevation that we looked at and was provided in the packet, so it wouldn't be, let's say, a complete wall of brick masonry, a complete wall of siding. That design aesthetic that's being seen in that front elevation would be carried to all 4 elevations. I heard some concerns about construction equipment. We too, as architects, would be concerned about that. We're not at that point from a design standpoint where we have a contractor on board who can tell us exactly what their means and methods would be to build the building, but it would be our intent that everything would be contained within the site itself. I heard a question about demo. Obviously, all the existing homes that were there have been removed previously. I heard a question about a bunker or some sort of concrete foundation. We're under the impression that, as architects, that has been completely demoed from the site. So, another item I heard.
Sorry, under the impression, or did you do a survey and you know? Sorry.
Well, we've walked the site. There's nothing exposed.
Okay.
Now, if something's 3 feet underground.
Yep, gotcha.
Wouldn't know, and we wouldn't know until we started digging, obviously.
Thank you.
And Mary Ann had mentioned that it was possibly the yellow house. I was there when that was demolished and taken out, and there was no bunker that was discovered at that point. They actually ended up having to scrape the property furthest from Mary Ann's, closest to the retention pond, because there was some asbestos material when they originally demolished that.
Okay.
You'd be doing some soil borings too, I would imagine, before.
But hang on,
course.
folks, if, this is still the public hearing, so if we could just have these guys, again, I'm just trying to get them to respond to some of the questions that were raised by the other people in the public hearing, and then the commission will have their opportunity momentarily.
Yeah, the last item I wanted to comment on is, obviously we've walked the site. We see that the lake level is low. We obviously can't speak to those water level issues as designers. They are what they are, but certainly erosion control would be a part of our design. The site would also be designed, and that's why you see the numerous rain guards. There would be no adverse drainage that would be created by the design. Everything's going to stay on site. The retention pond would not be disturbed. The lake obviously would not be disturbed in the ultimate design. Last comment that I just wanted to make is I heard some concerns about parking. We obviously exceed the requirements, and I think they're fairly generous, but that's my opinion and an opinion only. And then obviously the last thing I heard is some concern about traffic and speed issues and things like that. As an architect, we can design to the requirements and we can exceed them. I can't speak to traffic issues and the like. I noticed that in the report, the police chief did comment, but I didn't see anything related to traffic concerns in that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll close the public hearing portion and move to item number 7B, a pre-hearing conference on the request by Harlan LLC for consideration of a zoning permit for construction of a new 20-unit multifamily residential building at 4111 and 4113 Monona Drive, case number 2-004-2024. Doug?
Thank you. So I'll run through some of the highlights from the staff report that, for those following along, is included in the meeting packet that's posted online, and sort of call out a few elements for discussion as part of this pre-hearing. So as part of the summary of the proposal, Mr. Miller of Harlan LLC proposes the development of a 5-story multifamily residential building on the currently vacant lots at both 4111 and 4113 Monona Drive. 2 lots total just over half an acre at 0.502, and the conceptual plans include 20 rental units with 28 covered and 2 surface parking stalls. The property is located within the multifamily residence district, which is characterized, zoning district, which is characterized by high-density dwelling units with proximity to commercial developments or major streets. The 2016 comprehensive plan classifies this property as multifamily, which is defined by the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission within that document as land used for medium to high-density development of multifamily dwelling units with proximity to commercial districts or major streets. It's worth noting that a number of adjacent properties to the north are single-family residential, although current zoning and future land use both identify these as multifamily. The Commission should discuss the proposed use, the density, and its alignment with the classifications, as well as integration with adjacent properties. Within the proposal, a range of unit types varying in size from studios to 2 bedrooms are proposed, each having private balconies or patios. Community amenities include kayak paddleboard storage, a new dock in Lake Monona, potential fire pit area, as well as a fitness center. As far as site design, typically the zoning code states that all sites will be required to cover up to 30% of the site in open green space. The materials, the site plan submitted shows 33.4%, approximately 7,300 square feet of the site will be green space. Of course, subject to change based on final design, the amenities, the patio, things like that. Setback standards are not given for this district. Instead, they're reviewed according to the performance standards and against adjacent uses. As mentioned, the plans show a 10-foot setback in each of the side yards, which would be the north and south, with privacy landscaping and rain gardens within the buffer as well. A 30-foot 30 setback shown in the street yard, and a 30-foot setback in the shore yard from the 100-year flood elevation. One point I would just clarify, having heard the during the public hearing section, would be whether that is the property line or the back of the sidewalk. So just a point of clarification there for those measurements. In the city, we do take those from the property line, so I would just want to verify those. The shore yard setback is 30 feet from the 100-year flood elevation. Although the multifamily district does not specify setback standards, it does call for compatibility and smooth transitions to the adjacent commercial and low-density uses. Of note, typically single and 2-family construction is 50 feet from the meander line. The meander line is a point that would be shown on a site survey, on a property survey, and once we have that information, we can verify that. But it is further into the shore yard setbacks, just looking at the aerials, than the other multifamily developments to the north. The Monona Drive Urban Design Guidelines are mentioned, which this property would be subject to. This runs all the way along north-south of the Monona Drive corridor. It discusses the connection to the street edge. That's definitely something to discuss this evening as to how the Commission feels about the location of the massing as it relates to both the street but also the pedestrian connection and the sidewalk running along Monona Drive here. As mentioned, there's limited stepping on the west side of the property with the footprint of the units remaining constant throughout. I did include some information there about the massing and some sort of comparable densities, both for nearby projects, which includes both condos and apartments, as well as recently approved multifamily densities. So the commission should discuss the density and the massing shown within the proposal, as well as step backs, and if this is in line with their vision for the site. Of note as well, this is across 2 sites, 2 lots, so whether to proceed, there would be a need for a certified survey map to combine the 2 lots and alleviate construction across two separate properties. Circulation and parking, certainly a couple points to consider. As proposed here, that would consist of 2 curb cuts, 1 for each of the existing properties. There would be no internal circulation between the 2 of those. It was discussed in terms of the possibility of having maybe a circle drive or something like that to assist with entry and exit into the site, maybe something for the commission to discuss. The parking, as mentioned, we have standards for that in attachment 2 of the zoning code. Based on the number of units and the type of units, whether they're a studio, 1-bed or 2-bed, the proposal is 1 stall in excess of the standards. They would require 29 and they propose 30. 28 of those being closed and 2 would be surface stalls. In addition, the plans do show infrastructure for electric vehicle charging within the site, as well as bike parking, potentially at the sort of the wall at the back of each of the parking stalls within the enclosed parking. The plans do not include stormwater or lighting and landscaping at this point. Discussion was definitely made about the need for adequate buffers, and sort of that can be a way to assist with some of those transitions. So there's some concepts sort of shown in the site plan, but could certainly be a part for further discussion. And then the plans were shared with city department heads for review and comment. Police Chief Cheney had questions related to parking egress and visibility, just with some insight into the Lake Edge Shopping Center and Monona Drive, really calling that to the attention rather than stating that there's not likely major concerns and something they can tackle if project progresses, was sort of the comment that he provided. And then finally, Public Works Director Stefani had concerns regarding the sewer infrastructure serving the site, believes that there's an MMSD line beneath Monona Drive, and there should be some discussion, confirmation of that. And at a minimum, his recommendation was the grinder pump located in front of the parcels would need to be upsized to accommodate the proposed building at the cost of the developer. So just an infrastructure element to be mindful of as well. Jumped around a little bit in the staff report. Apologies for that, but that's everything I have for the moment. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. With that, I will open it up to commission members. And not seeing, unfortunately not seeing the room on my screen. I'm gonna, there we go. I'm gonna ask actually to start with Brendan.
Okay. There's already been a lot of things discussed here. Just looking to the inside of the building, I can't tell from, I didn't take off the scale, but this elevator that's inside this building, is this freight size elevator? You know, given that it's a 5-story building and, you know, thinking about residents moving into and out of the building, that is likely going to get used heavily for moving furniture. So I didn't know if this was just imagined as a person elevator or, you know, sized to anticipate moving furnishings into and out. We've commented to a lot of folks with the parking garage spaces of just maybe anticipating the electrical rough-in for EV charging to 100% of stalls, just so that there's flexibility with however that might be planned out in the future. Since the elevation shows glazing, but the plan views don't, just about the fitness center, just making the suggestion of if you have any interior glazing planned for that room, you know, given its sight line, potential sight line to the exterior of the building, it might be a might be a nicer space to use. But again, I don't know if that's intended or not intended, because there are no, even any of the exterior windows aren't shown on any of the plan views. I was trying to follow like the mechanical corridor through the whole building. It doesn't look like it's a consistent mechanical stack, so I was trying to imagine how that was snaking its way through the building. This, on the lower level, this studio apartment that's right next to the parking garage, I'm thinking both about air quality as well as just sound and safety. Of just when there's further review about this, it would just be, I don't know exactly what we would ask for to review, but just understanding what the quality of life might be for the resident who's, you know, the long wall of their property is going to be adjacent to the parking garage. I think that was most of the, it's a small site, so Rob will probably have more substantive things to offer than what I can, but just not having it be a barren site. I know that we've got a little bit of privacy landscaping, and we're talking a little bit about rain gardens, but just the landscaping plan, even though it's a small lot, I think that could do a lot to help with the massing concern in terms of how high it's going up on the two sides of the building. And am I correct to interpret from the elevation view here that that lower level, the lower level is entirely below like the top curb elevation? That, you know, there's basically just a ramp that's going down? And if yes, then in any subsequent review and presentation, especially thinking about safety and et cetera, we've got sidewalks that are adjacent to that pathway, so the retaining walls and fencing, et cetera, just protecting pedestrians that are adjacent to both that main entryway as well as this sidewalk that's going along the side of the building. Yeah, I'll leave it at that for now. Based on just what is available to review, there's obviously a lot more that we would like to see about the other elevations of the building. We understand your comment that you would carry the same design aesthetic around the balance of the building. Seeing the north and south elevations will be especially important. But yeah, I'll stop there.
Patrick?
Yes. Couple questions. One, where do you see guest parking?
That's the intent of the two surface spots that are there, is those would be guests, obviously one's in excess.
Okay, so
One's not.
two surface parking spots. So in practical terms, people are going to be parking across the street at the shopping center. I mean, we know that's probably likely going to happen. So I'm just curious how that's going to end up playing out, because, you know, on any given holiday or 4th of July, when people are coming to this building and wanting to see the fireworks across the lake at downtown, like at the Constellation Building, like the Festival of Foods fireworks, I foresee this being a popular place that people are going to want to invite their friends over and see, and they're going to park across the street in the shopping center parking lot likely. So I guess one of my concerns is the amount of parking at this location based upon, well, its location. Erosion controls. Have you had any preliminary discussion at all with the development aspect on the shoreline with the DNR, and what feedback did you get from them?
We have not had any discussions with the DNR. Obviously, we're used to, as architects, designing and create with erosion control, so it'd be no different. I mean, obviously, whether it's a water, which is obviously very important, but even if it was just a general neighbor, we don't want to create any adverse drainage onto anyone.
For the developer, have you given thought to boat slips at all? Because I recall once upon a time, I was the president of a waterfront condo association, so all respect to those here that are on condo boards. That's a lot of work. I remember when we were seeking boat slips, they only gave us 6 for our 32 units, and it was just super big deal to try and get any more, and we never were able to. just so many regulations involving those waterfronts. So I guess were you thinking about boat slips? Were you thinking of that being an amenity for the building? Have you looked into the DNR? Are they going to give you boat slips?
We're not sure. about
Not sure yet?
that. We're not sure.
Okay. Any thoughts on on sustainability aspects of this building, incorporating solar in the design at all? Anything of that nature beyond roughing in spots for electric vehicles?
We haven't looked at that.
Okay.
Just not that
Gotcha.
far down in the design mode, but yes, valid comments for sure.
Gotcha. And have you given any thought to rental rates that, you'd be looking to charge at this point? Would you be willing to share those?
I would have to have my plan completely
Okay.
done before, I don't have a.
Gotcha, we
I can
can-
say it's a specific square foot,
Okay.
dollar per square foot.
Sir, can you use the mic?
Sorry.
All right. I think that's about all I have at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Humber, would you like to go next?
You surprised me. That's not really in order.
Well,
Okay, lots to talk about, and please excuse me. I'm used to being there with plans on the table and paper I can touch and write on, so I'm going to be really disjointed and out of order in a lot of things. First, nobody said it. Sure would prefer if this could be a condo project. We are so needy of more condos in Winona, and this is a perfect spot for it with the lake and everything else. But hopefully you could give that some consideration. Question for the architect. I'm not clear on your separation between the parking levels. What is the separation that you're going to need, and where do we come in based on existing grade with first floor, for example? Can anybody hear me?
So, yes, I did. I just wanted to make sure I phrased my answer. Sorry for the pause. Yes, so there are parking spaces in the lower level. They will require a drive down from street level approximately to the lower level. And then there are parking spaces within the building that are on the street level, generally speaking. That'd be a straight drive in. So there are two different methodologies, if you will, to get to the parking areas for the building.
I understand all that. My question was, what is the separation? I mean, how much do you need for the cars and your structures? So what is the grade differential between the lower level and the first level? And how are you, you said drive straight in. I would assume you'd come up at least a little bit. What I'm getting to is I'm worried about how steep you're coming down in 30 feet and that it'll be accessible for the cars.
Yes, you are correct. You're probably coming up slightly from the street to the first level. That being said, you asked, the question I heard was height differential from, let's say, the lower level parking to the first floor. It's an 11-foot difference as we've got it currently thought through.
Okay, that's more than I expected. So even if you rise 3 feet into the first floor parking, you're still going down 8 feet into the lower level. Then are you going to use some of that throat inside that to try to get part of that ramping? Because it'd be an awfully steep slope if you try to take 8 feet and 30 feet. You're talking almost a 25% slope.
Yeah, it's probably closer to 8, more like in 45, 50. But yes, I do understand the concern, and we'll make sure that the design addresses it. Obviously, if the parking lot isn't accessible, it doesn't serve anybody, whether it's citizens on the street or users of the apartment.
Exactly. That's where I'm trying to get to, is just some thought on that and how you're going to do it. You, as somebody mentioned, the site is filled up, so it's going to be difficult to get some of these things in. While I'm talking about parking, again, I said I'm going to meander over all kinds of things. I would highly encourage the developer to think about, let me back up. When we have our parking standards, which you are meeting right now, part of that is for your visitors. So part of those stalls that are being held underground are really, according to our standard, for these units to have stalls available for visitors. And I know there's security concerns, but I would suggest some type of protocol that even if a visitor comes to park up in the 2 exterior or at-grade stalls, that some way that they can call in and get admittance for the unit that they're visiting to get into some stalls downstairs. I doubt they'll all be used by residents. So it's food for thought, but it's been mentioned, it'll be mentioned again, 2 stalls is, you need that just for deliveries. If somebody calls it Uber, just for general comings and goings, and it'd be really hard if those get used up by visitors. So I think it would behoove you too for your development to make sure you have the parking available. People will rent there, but they won't come back if they can't park. I really am going around. I'm going to architecture now. I like a lot of what you've done. It just feels like what helps is there's so much articulation on the front of that building, and it really helps give some variety and a good feel to the front of the building. And I like the way you used your brick in not just a variety of areas, but heights and back and forth. It really adds interest to it. That's the only elevation we have. This pretty much for us will act like a corner lot. It's visible from all 4 sides. So we'll be looking for architecture, 4-sided architecture on this building, and not just, hardy plank or something down both sides. And I think the north and south sides take actually a little more creativity. And I'm going back to complimenting you on some of the things you've done in that front. That looks good. But it'll take some creativity on that straight north and south side to try to make that look good. One thing that's been mentioned, and I agree with this, there's some way we can get some step backs on that 5th floor, because it's a lot of straight up. So I think it'd be nice to give some consideration of where you can step it in and out. And obviously by doing that, you can create more terrace areas and patio areas, which help your rents too. Just dragging along to different areas, the amenities, one of those, it looks like is a rooftop balcony, but then I heard you say, well, we may not do a rooftop balcony. Again, that coming out in the front is one of the things that I think helps with articulation of the building, the look of the building, all those things that change like that. And for these balconies, that one, if it's built, and then I think there's one on the 2nd floor or something, are those available for the entire unit? So if they want to get together with neighbors, they have an outdoor area where they can grill out or get together, have a drink, whatever it may be.
Just real quickly, yeah, that's the idea, that some of those spaces would be amenity space as opposed to a private balcony that you as an individual apartment user would have. So there's the thought to have both.
Thank you, because one thing we talk about a lot at the commission is amenities. Amenities are what make this thing attractive to people after they've been there the first time, just that they have amenities they want to use, and they're not rushing off to the next place that has better amenities. Just a personal curiosity, what's a TLT? It's on the 1st floor plan right by the exercise room. It's a TLT. What type of room is that, or what is it?
It may be hard to read at the small print size. It's TLT. That would be a public toilet that would be accessible to the exercise room and the rest of the residents when they're not in their units.
Got it. Add old eyes to small print, and it's a recipe for disaster. I'm jumping so much. Setbacks, but when we look at setbacks, Doug, I think the way we handle a lot of them on the lake shore is looking how they line up with the neighboring properties. And a meander line is a meander line. It's exactly that. Meanders all over the place, so an exact setback from a meander line is a really hard thing to do. But when I look at where this lines up compared to the 2 residential properties to the north, it seems to do a good job. If I was sitting on ZBA and they came in to look at it, I'd say, yeah, this is about where the building belongs. As far as the front yard, the 30 feet, you need the 30 feet. I'm still very anxious to see how he gets cars down in that lower level and what he'll do. I'm guessing you may have some tapering in the grades within the lower level parking, and then just some pretty steep stalls next to those. That brings me to, Doug, your comment about the circular driveway. That's a non-starter, because you've got these 2 driveways going like this, and then the further in you go, the further the differential is. Brandon was spot on when he talked about there'll be some retainage there. There'll be some major retainage there as they one comes up and one goes down. So I don't see any ability to have any type of circular drive, and I don't really see, quite honestly, a need. It looks like there's enough areas in the parking garage and in the surface parking for these cars to turn around and come out forward on the Monona Drive, which would be critical to come out forward on Monona Drive. And while I mentioned that, I know there's been some people talking about traffic, and Monona Drive can be tough, but we can't not let somebody build on a piece of property because people are breaking the law and speeding somewhere else. I mean, there's still property rights, and the applicant has a right to try to put something on this property. And years and years and years ago, Monona, might have been Mary Ann when Dick was mayor, if not right after, decided that this area would all be converted to higher density projects. We envisioned all condos, we didn't envision apartments, but we did envision the higher density, and that's why it was zoned like that, and that's why we've been asking to convert this area to have a higher, denser land use in this area. So it's hard to come to the last person and say, well, it's busy enough now, so stop and you can't build. So I don't think that's an argument we could use as a community. Everybody certainly has the right to build in the area that we designated for a higher density area. As far as the setbacks north and south, that's something I think in any other site with a condo building, we might change if it's next to single family residential, which this is. But again, our master plan, our zoning anticipates that converting to multifamily. Now, I know, Mary Ann, they'll probably have to carry you out, but someday that will probably be multifamily. That's at least the plan. So we need to plan a building based on what our overall master plan is and what the final uses will be. And I believe they will be all multifamily in there. So at that point, I don't think there's anywhere else we have or would require more than that 10-foot setback that you have north and south. The speaker's comment about how you're going to build it, very valid. This is going to be a tough one to build. And every time you are the last one to build in an area or neighborhood, you have to shoehorn in it. It's very difficult. And if this goes forward in your final approvals, we will look very carefully at erosion control, and not normal, but above and beyond. We always do. When it's on the shore of a lake, we look very carefully. When it's on the edge of a detention basin that is totally undersized and overwhelmed, we absolutely look for it. We'll absolutely look on Monona Drive, your track out. Normally, when you're in a project, there's some track out. Well, it's not allowable. Monona Drive is a county highway. It just, we can't. So those are things as you're going forward you have to look at, and we will look at above and beyond normal, but what would be necessary for that site as far as erosion control measures go in some. There's a comment, Doug, in your write-up that you'd like to see moderate to low-cost housing. Of course, with the law that was passed in, I believe it was 2017, we don't have the right to ask for low or high cost or anything. The only way that we have any ability to do that is through the CDA. If we're actually giving them money, then we have the right to ask for whatever we want because we're giving them money. But as far as if they're on a zoning type that they have a right to that zoning, I think it's up to them to decide the type. Having said that, I think this is a great project in the mix of types. I don't know there are too many areas that can go from 780 square foot efficiencies on the lake to 2,000 plus square foot 2 bedrooms. I mean, there's a great variety of housing types in this, which I think adds to some great diversity for who's going to be living here and who's going to be renting these. It's on the lake, so they're going to be very nice, and people will definitely want to be here. It's I guess if I was going to say, if we're going to look for low income housing, we probably wouldn't put it on such an expensive lot. We'd put it on a more affordable lot to try to keep the cost of the housing down. So I know you mentioned it. I don't see where we have a lot of room to do anything with that. I was surprised. I wasn't aware that this lot was on a grinder pump. I don't know if the applicant was. Are you aware of the grinder pump or where the sewer goes, any of that? Or you haven't done your survey work yet, I assume? Are they awake, or have I put them to sleep?
Just took a second to grab the microphone. Yes, obviously, we understand that there's a lift involved with the grinder pump, but obviously that'd be resized and sized appropriately for 20 units as opposed to the current residences.
Okay, and his other option was to do a tap on the Madison manhole, so I assume there's, or Madison line, I don't know there's a manhole there, I just assume it'd be whichever one's more cost friendly, then that would be the way I would assume you'd go. Construction deliveries, again, with your erosion control plan, construction deliveries will be critical, not just building materials, but even getting your earth in and out of here. There's really nowhere to store things. So again, if this goes further, I think you've got to really give some great thought as to how you're going to bring people in and out. And we'd like to see a plan on that. Setbacks I mentioned. I think one thing that would really behoove you would be probably you've got 2 residences and a condo right next to you. It would sure be nice just to meet with them and go over things so that they know what you're doing. Talk to them a little bit, and you probably can work out a lot of these issues and probably have a lot calmer people at your next meeting when they know what you're doing and that you'd really like to work with them on this. I think that would go a long ways. And if the chair would allow it, I'll stop now, but I'm sure I've missed something in this mess of a write-up I did. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Let's see, Doug, who's on the other side of you again? I can't see the municipal room. Rob.
Thank you. Starting off looking at the land use, I think it's totally appropriate. I think it's a good land use. I like the idea of multifamily going in here. I think there's a lot of questions to overcome. But as far as the proposed use, I think it's appropriate. Looking at the site design, I have a couple of comments and questions. This setback from the flood elevation line that you have it at 30, but I pulled my scale out and I marked 20 from a different area. If you just go a little bit to the south there, it's clearly closer than 30 based off of this diagram that I have. That furthest patio to the south there that you're not pulling that marker from. So you're a little closer than I think you have indicated on your plan, if that's accurate. And I know more investigation will be done. Moving around the building, looking at kind of site circulation, and I know there's more design to be done here, but the entirety of the front of the building it's basically parking lot traffic, which doesn't leave a lot of room for design of an entry, kind of a foreground to this building. So you have kind of a stoop, and that's about it. So I think there should be thought put into how you create kind of that foreground to this building, and it's not just a garage door on both sides that go in and up. Where would the accessible parking stall, so the 2 surface stalls, would those be accessible? Would one of them be accessible or both of them be accessible? And if so, are those appropriately sized to accommodate accessible parking? If not, they would have to grow in width.
We would anticipate that one of the surface sites would be accessible, and then obviously one of the sites inside, and I believe that meets our requirement, but don't quote me on that off the top of my head. I think it's 2, so we'd have one inside and one outside, assuming that one of the units may have somebody that needs that accessibility.
Okay, so that's further expanding kind of the parking area, lack for other sort of site design considerations, and it's going to be eating into your green space number, getting you closer to that 30 where you have a little bit of wiggle room now. The turning radius, if you're traveling southbound on Monona Drive and you're going into that parking stall, that's a really tight, that's a U-turn, that's a 2-point turn, which unless the intention is to pull into that second driveway and then back into that. I know we're tight on space here, but it's a consideration, especially for deliveries and box trucks and things like that. You're just really limited, so running some turning movements in this space, I think, would be a wise thing to do to make sure that that's going to function. Let me see here. Trying not to hit on everything that's been talked on already. Drop-offs, I think the lack of visitor parking is going to be an issue, and I'm not sure if that'll be a conflict with the shopping center across the street. I'm sure it's all about times of days and things like that, but I think Patrick was spot on. That's going to happen, whether you want it to or not. The design and architecture, I think based on what we've seen so far, I like it. I have no issues with that. I know this is early on, but I think it would fit into the neighborhood and adjacent uses. It's tall. I think you said, going off of what you provided here, it's 56 feet, but then up to 61 at the corners. So if my scale is correct and if the scale is correct. So it's getting up there. So, doing what you can to kind of break up that facade, and whether it's actual or implied articulation and use of materials will be important. And I think I agree with Chris, is that this has visibility from multiple directions, which kind of dovetails into stormwater questions and comments, is that, given the tight nature of the site and where you've located your stormwater BMPs on the south side there, there's 10 feet. Realistically, do you have 10 feet of true treatment area? That's going from foundation wall to property line, and it's probably not actually 10 feet is what I'm getting at, which it limits kind of stormwater. I'm not saying you can't do it. I'm sure you haven't done the modeling yet, but it's a consideration. But it also kind of doesn't allow any room for any sort of I won't even call it screening, but landscape accents. So you're gonna have a big wall, and we haven't seen the elevation of that side of the building, but I think a lot of design considerations should be made to make that attractive, because it's gonna be a big wall as you drive north on Monona Drive. I don't know how far you've delved into stormwater yet, but do you have any concerns? I'm guessing that the rain garden on the up near the street, that's the high point of the site, not ideal for stormwater. Have you done any sort of preliminary calcs and feel comfortable with the sizing for your stormwater requirements? Or I guess alternatives are pretty limited too, given that you have lakeside on one side, and then other GI practices for the front is probably limited due to it's complex the way you have the two driveways going on, so permeable pavers or tree trenches and things like that are probably limited. So sorry, I'll let you respond.
We've done a very cursory analysis. I think as we stand where we are in the design process, we feel comfortable with kind of the sizing we're showing, but we certainly aren't fully designed there yet, and certainly can appreciate the concern.
Okay. That's about all I have for now. Again, I think it's a good project. I would like to see something like this go forward, but I think you got some work to do too. But yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Great, thank you, Rob. Susan?
Well, a lot of the concerns I had coming in, I've heard talked about already. I do appreciate some of the architectural features. I appreciate you using covered parking. I mean, that's not only for the efficiency of it, but just from the appearance. I think those are pluses. I think a lot of your difficulty obviously comes from the density. It still feels too dense to me. When I drive down the drive, it was the lack of step backs on the upper level that I noticed also, and looking at 4101, the reason that building, for one thing, that's 18 units on a lot that's not quite twice the size, but a much bigger lot. And they do have a lot more green space around them, as do some of the other condos. They're set back further, there's just more space. This one is right there, and straight walls coming up as you drive up and back. And it seemed to me too that if you could 4101 has 4 stories, and then it is just the middle where it's 5. So when you gave the 55-foot height, I'm not sure which part that was talking about. In terms of saying that that building was taller, I don't know if you're talking about the middle of it versus the side, but it would architecturally flow better if it were if yours had a little more lower, if you had maybe two-bedroom apartments on the top and maybe balconies or something that would change the appearance of that, and you wouldn't have that total flat wall. I mean, you are using it just feels like you're using every square foot you can. I think, also about driving into that parking garage, it wouldn't surprise me if you end up losing a couple spaces, because it's hard for me to picture how you're going to drive down that ramp and you've got those spaces right there, unless I'm not looking at this right, not being an engineer. But yeah, it's just hard for me to see how some of those are going to be functional when you first go in. So I just think you're creating a lot of problems with the density. That area it's not just the speed, it's that curve coming around that area at Buckeye is kind of a blind curve. I mean, at night and in the rain, it's hard to see. It's dark there. And even in the daylight, I mean, I've tried to come out of those driveways frontwards and had to stop many times because I thought it was going to be clear, and bam, there's a car. And it's not, I don't know that I would even say they're necessarily speeding. I mean, the speed limit is 30, they may be going 35. It doesn't seem like, to me, it's terrible, but it's just there's a lot of traffic at different times. And Lake Edge Shopping Center right now is very popular. It's a very busy place. So there are more cars coming in now. So that is a concern. And I know traffic management isn't your concern, but building a building that's appropriate and can handle the traffic should be part of your concern. And it's certainly part of our concern. So I just would rather see slightly less density overall, I guess. Makes more sense to me there. That when you're going to have a rain garden on the south sides, the north side shows the 10 feet. It also appears that for most of the people in the building, the only access to the lake is going to be coming out the front door and walking down the side, because the stairs are in the front. So the people that have patios on the ground level can walk right out, but everybody else is going to need to use that. So you're going to need to have some kind of sidewalk, I would assume, down, or path to the lake or down to that side. And we would expect some robust landscaping, because they are very visible, both of those sidewalls. And so I too am kind of waiting to see your drawings for both sides and the back as well. Let's see. And I guess that's the other thing I thought of too. I mean, deliveries, the Amazon truck, I see it constantly going up and down my street. Apartments, you're going to have Amazon trucks pulling in and out of there all the time. And you're going to have people taking Uber. I mean, I agree with Chris's point. Also was something that occurred to me, because we've heard from a lot of developers that our parking restrictions are higher than most. And it does seem like it would kind of be enough parking if that parking was accessible to everybody, but it isn't going to be to visitors unless you can create some kind of way for them to get in and out of your garage and label certain, I don't know how you do that, but that's up to you to figure out. But that won't help the Amazon truck and the Uber people that are going to be pulling in there, which is where a circular drive would help, which is if you had a less dense building and could push it back further, you might be able to do it. You can't do it with this building. So I guess those are concerns I would have too. Just it would be a lot nicer, and that's part of why I think those other condos do have circular drives, because you can drive in. It's much easier to pull all the way around or come in. There's a lot more room to turn around. A single car will be able to come in and turn around in your 2 spaces, providing one of them is empty at least, but otherwise it's going to be a challenge. So I just think you have more thinking to do about that. Again, we don't have the certified map that shows the meander line, so we can't really tell how far you are from the lake, but yeah, and I assume you are going to want to put a pier out. That is going to be good luck with that with the current lake situation. I mean, it was like that all summer. I mean, it's worse now than it was last summer, but it looked about like it does now. Most of last summer, people had piers out, but they couldn't use them. So that's just something to be aware of for how you're going to market this. Let me see. A lot of the things have been covered. I don't want to go over all of them again, but I think those are most of it. I guess personally, I mean, we realize that in Monona, we are going to be talking more dense housing, and eventually there will be more apartments and hopefully some condos. We are looking for condos along that area. But again, looking at I know there's a difference in condos, but 18 units, you have a density of 19.4 units per acre, and this is 39. I mean, it's within the guidelines, but it's pretty high. So I guess I'd really encourage you to go back and look at the number of units again and see if you really need to have that many. I mean, maybe you could, if you did two bedrooms on the top floor, maybe you could put another one on the third. I mean, it would reduce the need for some of the parking underground also, and just something to think about. Otherwise, yeah, I like the mix of the brick, and some of that I think works. The front looks pretty flat to me on this. I guess I'll wait to see your other elevation, your pictures, to see how that looks. I think that's probably all. Oh, the elevator question, that is a question. I only see one elevator, so I assume you're going to make it big enough for people and furniture?
Obviously, we haven't gotten to the specifics of the
Okay.
elevator, but yes, it needs to be sized appropriately because
So
no
will
one.
just be one? but
Yeah,
that's-
one elevator, but
Yeah.
obviously, no, when you have an apartment building that's 5 feet high,
Right.
I'm sorry, 5 stories high, excuse me, obviously you're going to need a generally sized elevator. No one's taking any major furniture up 5 flights of stairs
Right.
and commanding the rents that I think Jesse wants to command, right? So duly noted, and I didn't
All
answer
right.
it before, but yes, it'd have to be more freight sized to allow
Sure.
couches, armoires, et cetera, et cetera.
Right?
Agreed.
That sounds good. Yeah, I think that was all. Otherwise, I do think it's appropriate use. I mean, it's not, the use isn't the issue, it's more the size.
Thank you, Susan. Actually, if, to the applicant, if you guys could kind of respond to Susan's concern that she just raised around, is there only going to be a staircase in the front? And does that mean that the only way that, tenants are going to be able to access the lake is that they're going to have to walk around the sides of the building where the setbacks, the side setbacks are relatively small as it is already? Is that what you're thinking on that?
Yeah, thank you for bringing up that question. To be honest, we don't envision that the tenants are walking on the side of the building to access the lake. If you look at the first floor plan, you'll see there's multiple doors through the parking area. We're envisioning that if they're going down the lake, they're probably stopping at that kayak storage, whether they're grabbing a kayak, a paddleboard, a life vest, something to float on, something to, that type of thing. So we're envisioning that you'd come down the stairs or the elevator through the first floor to that storage, or there's also an additional door that goes out from the parking area. So we're kind of picturing that coming down through the building, grabbing what you need to go down by the lake, and then doing that. So can I say for sure that no one's going to walk around the side? Of course not, but that's not the intended design flow
So
that we.
through the parking garage. is
Yeah,
what
you
they'd
can
be
see there's
doing,
multiple
basically.
doors that would go towards the lake, some through that
Right.
kind of amenity space and some just direct access to. And then obviously a couple of the units would have direct access.
Right.
Thank you. Corey?
Well, I will try not to repeat things except where I think it might bear repeating. I would be the tenant that would want to walk around outside, and that was one of the first things that stood out to me is it not on?
No, it is, it's just.
When I was looking at it, on the one side, yeah, I'd have to either walk through the rain garden or on the outside of the privacy fence, which seemed strange. I was just thinking, what if are you gonna allow pets in the building? Is that something you've considered? So I'm out, I'm walking my dog. I'm not ready to go to my apartment and I wanna go and sit by the lakeside. So then I'd have to take my dog through the parking lot or through the parking garage and out the kayak storage. What if it's fall? I'm not gonna necessarily float. I think, there's just some considerations about how people wanna use the site. I also was wondering about the additional amenities. I know you haven't really thought through that yet, but you are at 33% green space, which is good. But if you are going to allow pets and you're going to eventually have like a pet run, or you're going to put in some patios or some kind of a picnics, whatever, this, just doing the minimum might not be what you want to do at this site. You know, this is a site right on the water. You want to make it as attractive as possible. And I think the suggestions that you're hearing from us here are an opportunity for you to think very creatively about how you would want to put something like this on the site to make it workable. I agree with Susan that it just seems too big. And I do think some of the concerns that we're raising could be alleviated by having less density. My other big questions are about the parking and the circulation. I was thinking about, okay, so you have a guest, and then an Amazon truck comes to deliver, and then at the same time, the post office comes, and there's no place for that post office vehicle to park so they can run in and deliver the mail. So I just think there's not enough parking for that. The point about it being like a U-turn to get into that parking stall is very appropriate. And then I was wondering about the emergency access. What if there was a fire in the building? Would you have to get water rescue to come and shoot from the other side? Because there's not really a way to get around the building? I mean, I'm not really sure, but it just, if there's only the 10 feet, or if you need to fix something in 20 years and you have to go around the building, you only have 10 feet. It might be, you might want to think about that a little bit. I just think it's really squished in there. Let's see. The garbage truck as well. I mean, it looks like you have enough dumpster that fits in one parking stall. I don't know how much trash 20 units would create. I don't know if that's big enough, but you still have to have the garbage truck be able to pull in and get all that and pull back out. And they're going to be blocking the driveway while they're doing that, which maybe that's standard, I'm not sure. But, and then I was a little bit confused about the elevation that you showed, because I'm not seeing the 2 driveways. I'm only seeing the 1 garage door.
The way we cut that elevation is you're seeing the 1 garage door that would go to the first floor. The lower level isn't shown, but
Oh, okay.
It's
All right.
it's just how we cut it. We essentially kind of look
Okay.
at it from the street, if you will.
All right, I didn't understand that. I was confused. So it would go where these 3 windows are? Is that kind of the?
Correct.
Okay. I guess the only other comment I'd like to make is don't discount the safety. I mean, Chris, had mentioned it's not up to you to make sure people are going the speed limit, and I agree with that. However, you also want to create a safe space for people to live and make it easy for them to pull into their driveway. Otherwise, if there's, or pull out of their driveway, I guess. If there's a lot of cars coming around that curve, I mean, it is that curve. That
Yes,
curve
it's
is
kind of a
just,
blind
it's a
curve.
little bit tricky. So, just maybe spend a little bit of time at the site and just try some different things and get creative. Because I agree that the mix is good. I'll say condos as well, but I think that's it.
Thank you, Corey. Circling back around, does anybody else want to, any other commissioners have some additional questions or comments, now having heard from other commissioners? Chris?
Thanks. One comment I forgot to make, and I don't want this to seem bad. I think you've done a great job with your initial architecture on this, I think. All the movement in the front, all the different materials, things coming in and out and back and forth are great. But there was a comment about that entry, and you have 2-story glass there, which certainly from the road makes it look more like entry. But when I was looking at your initial elevation, I like the little elevation on the corners, but I was wondering if there would be some central architectural massing or feature that would really make it feel like you know where the entry is, that might extend even above the roof line. And I don't know what that is, because you've already done a better job on this than I could, but it's a thought I'd like to leave you with, and I agree with all the density comments. If we could just get a little density out of this, you could have so much more flexibility in how you do all of that. Thank you.
Thank you.
If I may.
Anyone else?
Jump in. I did receive a couple comments from Commissioner Chapman as well. If now would be an appropriate time to share those.
Sure.
Thank you. So he raised the same question about acceptable ramp slope requirements for the lower level. Conceptually, does the access meet those requirements? And then also raised a question regarding garbage pickup, and if there was room in the entry drive for a truck, or if it's accomplished doing so from Monona Drive. So again, similar to comments that were raised. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just add that I concur, that I think that there would be some important flexibility provided by having a little less density, as we've now indicated. I share the concern about the tightness to Monona Drive, given it's inevitable that you're going to have Amazon Sprinter vans that can't get into the garage, or not to mention the garbage trucks, or other vehicles, Ubers, other vehicles that I just think that it's going to be, may not need a circular drive there. It may be better not to have a circular drive there, but I do think that having only like 2 spaces and being that tight to Monona Drive is going to be really, it's going to be a real challenge. And overall, as I said, I just think in terms of the articulation and in terms of the overall comfort level on the site, that losing some of the density would probably be helpful. I'm also wondering if somebody, and Chris, you might be the person to answer this one. I'm recalling that there have been times when the catch basin has filled, if not overflowed, and my understanding is that potentially that catch basin is smaller for the area that it's required to handle. And I'm wondering if that's a concern as it relates to this project as well.
Well, if I could answer that, to say it's undersized is a mouthful. There was never any detention basin there to clean any of the sedimentation out until the city of Monona made a deal with the city of Madison, and there's a deal on who is going to pay to build it, who is going to pay to maintain it. It's incredibly undersized, but it's all we had, and that at the time, that's all Monona owned, was that one vacant lot. We owned that lot, so we allowed it to be built there with an agreement with the city of Madison. It's virtually all city of Madison water. It's a massive storm sewer system that goes through there. If it were sized appropriately, it would probably take up another acre or 2 out of San Damiano property. So yes, it's way overloaded. You can see right now when the water's down that it needs to be cleaned again, but you can see it needs to be cleaned. It is catching sediment, but it'll be a concern obviously with construction. It's going to be a little difficult. You'll have a 11-foot basement being dug right next to that. So you're basically going to have a 1-to-1 right to the property line. So it's just a concern. It's absolutely a concern, but this property right now has no sedimentation other than the grass, and the requirement will be to get, I don't know if this will be a 40 or 80% site, but they'll be required to have more than what's on that site right now. So there'll probably be less runoff. The concern we'll have as a municipality will be during construction. We'll be looking at it really closely because of its location to the lake, the sedimentation basin, and Monona Drive.
Okay.
Does that answer your question at all? Did I hit it?
It does, thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it. Like I said, certainly recall that basin filling before, and I knew that it was undersized, so I appreciate it, Chris. Any other questions from the commissioners tonight? Or comments? Not hearing any, I would like to ask the applicants, do you feel like you got a clear sense from us? And if not, where can we provide you with clarity? We want these pre-hearings to be productive for you in terms of, in terms of any potential next steps. Can we provide you with any additional clarity?
Thank you for asking that question. No, we certainly have taken a lot of notes here, understood that comments that have been raised and heard them, and we were saying here, I think we're good with the information that's provided. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you again for coming tonight. And with that, we will move on to the next part of the agenda. That being item 7C, public hearing on the request by Slendy Realty Investments, LLC, represented by Fisher Consult, LLC, for consideration of a zoning permit for construction of the new multi-story indoor storage facility at 1350 Fenwright Drive, case number 2-005-2024. With that, whomever is here to present on this particular proposal, there he is, now I can see you. Jeff, Bert, go ahead, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you.
And if you would like, again, Doug, if there's a way to pull up his application so that the public can see what we're talking about here as they're talking, that would be terrific.
Perfect, thanks. Just as a little point of background here for you, this is a piece of property that we pursued in discussions and conversations with Meritor before they became Unity Point. It was just about that time. They had leftover land, so to speak, that they had no intention of using. And through our meetings and discussions, we proposed a few ideas to them, which triggered a whole list of excluded uses that they would allow to happen. And Doug, that wasn't in the packet, so maybe, I don't know if you can pop.
Yeah, there's.
Oh, do they? Okay,
yeah.
very good. I see. Yeah. Okay, well then you have that list if you've had a chance to look at it. Yeah. It's restrictive, and I would think that it should be. That is a beautiful clinic, and they've done a nice job. So in our conversations, we're going on 2 years of working with them on this site. We've had lots of discussions as to what would be the highest and best use of the land, what would be a great tax generator for the city. But really, Unity Point was quite concerned about the aesthetic appearance of the building or buildings or usages. And so we've been under contract here for a long while. And we have come across a plan that their comments are, well, good luck. We hope this can all work out. So they are supportive of it. To let you know that we initially considered different uses. We successfully developed a parcel of land in Sun Prairie where we ultimately sold it to Culver's. So we have a relationship with Culver's. We presented this to Culver's as a site. They rejected it for a variety of their internal reasons and guidelines. We also presented it to Chick-fil-A, Quick Trip. We received an offer, unsolicited offer from a car wash. We just thought we could, I don't mean do better, but do better. We had brokers that we had discussed different uses and opportunities with. I had a strong inquiry from someone that was really thought that they should put their motorcycle shop in there and have a repair set up, and I was like, well, you know, I just don't see that. Nothing wrong with it, just didn't see it. So we have had a long relationship with Brian Fisher here, and Brian is a well-respected storage, particularly executive storage expert in this area. Storage, executive storage has evolved immensely over the years. Jeff is fond of saying to me, today's Class A is tomorrow's Class B, maybe even Class C. And I'll direct you to one of the photos that's in this, and Brian will cover a lot of the detail here, but 40 years ago, I developed a project on Copps Avenue, and it is represented in here. Just a few there you are. And I'm kind of sorry to say, that's what it looks like. When we built this project, it was featured in the Wall Street Journal. It was a Class A property. It was the first of its kind to have on-site resident management. We had an apartment there. It was clean, well-run, tight as a whistle. And this is not the storage of today. We happened to go to spring training one year in Arizona, and we were in this really nice neighborhood and driving around, and it was this really cool-looking building, and I said, what is that? It was the storage building in a very wealthy community, but you wouldn't know it. It was really an executive-looking building. That was 10 years ago, I think. And over time, this is how it's evolved. Again, Brian can discuss the detail, but the primary customer for executive storage are women. They do the research. Unfortunately, they have to be the one organizing the moves when it's primarily the residential thing. Executive storage, record storage, there's all kinds of uses. And the idea of having a storage facility plunked back in industrial court is simply not appealing. The security is of utmost concern, safety, lighting, and this sort of thing. So we really believe that with Brian's expertise, we've got something that we could all support and be proud of. Brian, I'll let you get into things, and by way of Brian's background, Brian served on the Germantown Plan Commission for a number of years. He's highly sensitive to things that we, don't come into our brain, and he's probably relates to you folks, better than we would, because we don't do what you do. So, Brian, you can address anything you'd like.
Well, thanks, Bert, and Bert did a good job of setting it up. Yeah, my name is Brian Fisher. I have, over the years, worked on almost 2 million square feet of storage. A lion's share of it is the executive style storage that we're talking about, which is what I would call climate controlled, typically with a drive-through or drive-in, highly secure, and often in retail areas. I've worked on projects from Port Washington to Port St. Lucie, Florida, Bentonville, Arkansas to Brunswick, Georgia, Middleton to Mequon, Wisconsin, and quite a few in between. I think that, I know this is a public hearing first, correct?
Yes.
All right, so I'm sure you're going to have some questions, and as we're going through the slides, I don't know if you want Doug bring those back up. I'll just give you a really quick rundown of what we've got here. So, we are working on that site, the Meritor site at 1350 Femrite Drive. The building itself is 51 feet high, and it's the level of architecture was meant to go along with what we have at Meritor. And we do have some, we'll get into that in a minute. We have some examples of what it can look like as well. Sure.
I also want to mention that there is a city-owned lot that's adjacent to this. And we had approached the city to say, you know, what are you going to do with this? Is there something that we should all collaborate on? And the discussion was, yeah, why don't you look into it? And we did. And through the county, they have an easement in there. And they, at this point, until the Highway 51 corridor is resolved in their minds, they didn't want to work with us to utilize that land. It was just another parcel there that was kind of like wasted. But by the same token, we were sensitive to the trees and the whole setup there. And so, anyway.
So I did in our submittal answer a lot of the questions that that Doug has in the presentation. So again, I think we'll get to that when we have the question period. And to Bert's point, you know, the site plan here, we're only showing the physical property line, and we're at 31% green space in this design here. You've got an additional right-of-way, former FEMRIGHT, extended to Highway 51 that is going to sit there, green space. I'm not going to say for perpetuity, but it's not a very large space that you could develop on anyway. So it's kind of a bonus green space for what it's, you know, for lack of better. If we go, Doug, down, these are the elevations. So we're in an enviable position to make this look pretty much any way we want. And so we're certainly open to suggestions, and I'll give you some examples as we go down here if there's anything that really jumps off the page. But this is what we're starting with. And if we go a little bit further down, you'll see we put some renderings for you. A little bit further. So these are, and I want to note that we gave you the direction of the view in the lower corner, so you know that we're looking west here. The trees that you see, we took some time in actually pinpointing the existing trees that are on the site and the foliage, both along Copse and then along the right-of-way that's been vacated. They need a lot of work. They need a lot of cleaning up, but you do have mature trees here, and we try to even fashion the entrance so that it would be in line with the way the trees are separated now. So we really try to pay attention to you know, being environmentally sensitive to the site as much as we can. And then maybe, yeah, a couple more views. This is looking north, kind of from the Meritor site. And then the next one should be the corner of, essentially the corner of FEMRIGHT and Copse as you hit that intersection. Yeah, I mean, we do have materials on the elevations in your packet. We're utilizing a combination of brick, cement board panel, metal, insulated metal panel, and we're trying to keep the colors neutral. We're not trying to burn out anybody's eyeballs with tangerine orange, or anything like that. So, so we really are trying to be sensitive. And then, if you want to go all the way down to Exhibit C, we can skip by B. Yep, and here's just some examples of the types of facilities we're talking about. I do want to mention that, you know, in doing presentations across the country, Wisconsin is unique in that self-storage is almost always found to be an approved use, or at least a conditional use, in an industrial zone district. And I think given what the product is, and then Bert pointed out from the facility across the street, they just seem to fit there. Over time, and like Bert said, down in Arizona, down in Florida, Georgia, Arkansas, Illinois, these facilities show up in commercial spaces. They show up in high-density spaces because that's where the people are that use them. While it's storage, I think it often gets confused with warehousing. And what we're looking at is a facility that might have 750 units, and every single unit that's rented is a transaction. It's a retail transaction. Somebody's renting space. So I think, to be fair, this is more of a commercial retail use in its current configuration, which we call executive storage, especially when it's all climate controlled, than what you would what we typically expect to be storage. And I run into this a lot, you know, when people hear storage, they have, it's like fingernails over a chalkboard. And I get, I'm not gonna lie, I run into it all the time. So we really wanna take a little extra time to talk about that.
Well, that was, excuse me, I want to just comment, that was one of the big focal points that we raised with Brian from the get-go, is that we are going to be Meritor's Unity Point's neighbor, and we want whatever we have here to really fit. And we also envision a whole different tier of customer than what typically is in other storage facilities, so.
Yeah, and again, as we go through my narrative, we talk about the different uses for storage, not just limited to personal storage. The last thing I'll point out, and then I'll be quiet for a while until you have your questions. Self-storage, the other misconception over time is that you need to have a lot of parking for self-storage. Self-storage, especially of this kind, we have an interior drive-through that's the full length of the building, 25 feet wide with interior drive aisles. When people come, they drive up to their unit. They don't park and get a cart and go 100 feet to get to their door. They go to where they can get to the door. When these larger facilities go up, during initial rent-up, when we try to hit stabilization, it could take up to 3 years. And during initial rent-up, the average hourly traffic impact is between 4 and 10 cars an hour. So it's not a lot. And when you get to the point of stabilization and everybody's kind of in their space, they got their stuff in there, it drops to 3 to 6 trips an hour. So it is not a high trafficked location. And that's kind of one of the benefits of this type of storage. You get a beautiful office looking facility that doesn't have an enormous parking field, that doesn't have a lot of cars coming in and out all the time like a car wash might, like a Chick-fil-A or a Culver's, you know, and they're queued out into Cops Drive. Very low impact. Also, as Bert said, as high as 85% of the folks that rent facilities are female. And so security is of utmost importance. So the office is manned during regular business hours, and we'll certainly, when we come back, we'll post what those hours are, but just so you know, it's 9 to 6 Monday through Friday, 10 to 5 on Saturday, not open on Sunday. That's the normal office hours. There's always a manager on site during those hours, and management is always monitoring the site 24 hours, 365 through off-site monitoring. And there are cameras everywhere, and the office has 2 to 3 monitors. One has all the different security cameras, and one shows that when somebody does come into their unit and they access their unit, it lights up. So we know that somebody is on this second floor at unit 302, or 202, because it's the second floor, and they're in their unit. So, and we also know when they key in, when they came in, we know when they left. So if anything fishy does happen, we can track it down to when they went through the gate. We can even take their license plate, picture their license plate. So super high security. And this has been an industry that has figured it out over the years. So their lease agreements are airtight. Their control of the type of things that are stored are well thought out, and their legal documentation is airtight. So with that, I'll step aside. I don't know if Jeff wants to add anything, but otherwise we'll wait for any questions.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here that to speak during the public hearing portion of this?
We do have somebody in the room.
Okay.
Would you like to come forward?
You should need that microphone.
So my name is Molly Coyle, and I am the owner of Monona Self-Storage. And what I'd like to do is share an email that one of my partners received. Now this is from the former city planner, and it also mentions a former city administrator, but we had previously asked the city if we could do improvements on our building, and this was the reply. So this is the city planner emailing my partner. It says, I spoke with the city administrator last week about your inquiry on construction of additional storage unit space by adding a second floor to the main building for climate-controlled storage units at 6301 Copps Avenue. He has also spoken to the mayor about your proposal. We feel that the expansion of warehouse-type storage units on Copps Avenue in this part of Monona is not consistent with the Broadway corridor plan adopted in 1989 for redevelopment along Broadway and not consistent with most of the surrounding area and with the development and redevelopment that is occurring in the area and that is planned for the near future. The same feedback was provided to the owners of the public storage property further south on Copps Avenue at 6408 to 6414 Copps Avenue when they proposed an expansion about a year ago. The site has been sold to a new owner and may redevelop in the future. So in the past, the city has said no to adding self-storage, both with public storage, which the only way they could expand would be basically exactly the lot that is being talked about right now, and then also said no to me. So while I'm for self-storage, I'm also for the same rules being applied. You know, why can't public storage do it? Why can't I do it, but someone else can? It's just not, it's just, you know, it's a problem.
Right. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing and coming to the meeting. Doug, is there anyone else?
Nobody else in the room. I'm not aware of anybody. I see Rob on the Zoom call.
Rob's a part of our team.
Oh, okay. No, he's part of the team. So I think that's it.
Okay. Great, thank you. Then we will close the public hearing portion of this particular application and move to number 7D, pre-hearing conference on the request by Slendy Realty Investments LLC, represented by Fisher Consult LLC, for consideration of a zoning permit, construction of a new multi-story indoor storage facility at 1350 Femright Drive, case number 2-005-2024. That I'm going to start with Patrick.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Doug. It's late already. Later where I am, so go ahead.
We look so similar.
Thank you. Slendy Realty Investments LLC proposing the construction of a 4-story executive storage building. Some of the details have been outlined, but executive storage facilities typically include indoor and outdoor security with keypad access, on-site management, dehumidification systems, and climate-controlled environments. Buildings are typically designed to give the appearance of a professional building with architectural fenestration, high levels of glazing, and high-quality materials. The land use component of this, the property is located within the Community Design District, CDD, and uses within this district shall include a compatible mix of residential, commercial, industrial, or open spaces, which realize the goals of the comprehensive plan. The Commission should discuss how the proposed executive storage application aligns with the definition of use, and if it aligns with the characteristics and compatibility standards of the CDD as outlined in the ordinance versus a traditional storage facility or conversion. The comprehensive plan classifies this property as commercial in use in both the current and the future land use maps. And again, the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission defines this as land used for retail service, commercial, and office uses. Adjacent land uses are varied within this district, including the Merida Clinic, now Unity Point, to the south, light industrial and commercial to the north, self-storage to the northwest, office and service to the west, and big box retail to the southwest. The use was most, or the lot was most recently used, the site of the NCR building, and it appears to have been empty and vacant since 2010 or 2011, based on county records. The application materials, both that were presented as well as included in the meeting packet, distinguish executive storage facilities from low-end row storage facilities and self-storage conversions. And again, the executive storage facilities are designed to appear commercial, in use with multiple stories and high-quality materials. Included in the staff report is a reference to 2021 application that the Plan Commission reviewed. This was a Devon self-storage application over at the former Shopco site on West Broadway. The findings of fact were included just for reference purposes within this. It was more of a conversion of the existing space with the adjacent parking. It was included for reference, and that's from January 2021. And that may help the Commission as it evaluates the CDD performance standards for this application. As far as site design and circulation, there's a new curb cut that is proposed near the center of the site along Femrite Drive. A drive lane is provided for vehicle circulation around the entire building, with parking stalls in the northwest portion of the site. It is discussed in the staff report about potential sidewalk access that could connect this to the proposed new Madison Metro route, allowing for a pedestrian connection there. As far as parking, it's typically based on per the standards of the city ordinance. It's based on the employees during the peak shift, or based on the office space that is provided, and just under 1,500 square feet of office is provided, necessitating 3 stalls. Both in the materials and again what was presented this evening, the applicant discusses the minimal need for parking given the interior circulation as well as the exterior drive and the exterior facing garage doors that are both on the north and south side of the building. As proposed, 5 stalls are included on the plans. It should definitely be outlined if there is an ADA accessible stall in any future plans that are included. The plans call for the construction of a 4-story building with just over 29,000 square foot footprint. It shows a varied and articulated facade with high quality materials. Large glazing elements on the corners give the appearance of a professional building, and the proposed colors are neutral with varied shades of gray. As shown, it is 51 feet tall to the top of the roof. Just for reference, the Menards across the street at 6401 Cops has a maximum height of about 32 feet, and certainly the Commission can discuss the proposed height and massing at this juncture to give some clarity to the applicant, as well as the architectural elements and how they are consistent or not with the commercial vision for the site, and additional elements that may be needed with that. The final element is the landscaping. And again, the applicant plans to maintain and bring into better health the existing trees that are there, the established trees on the site, the mature canopy, as was shown in the renderings. And currently the plans state that 31%, nearly 37,000 square feet of the site will be green space, meeting the city's requirement of 30% open space. A security fence is proposed around the perimeter of the building, not extending forward of the building, that again will assist with enhancing security for the site. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And actually, I'm gonna go to the other side of Doug now that I'm looking at the room, and start with Rob.
Good evening. Generally speaking, well, when I saw the item before I saw the actual application, I was like, oh no. That said, I was relieved to see the packet. It was much better than I was expecting. I think it does propose a pretty attractive building. As far as the land use, the proposed land use, I think I'm okay with this in this general area. I have a couple of questions though. Is there, thinking about the longevity and the lifespan of this building, is there any sort of opportunity for adaptive reuse with such a specialized building like this? Is that something you've seen with all your experience?
Sure, I'll answer that question. All you have to do is drive around anywhere in the United States and see the self-storage facilities that were built in the 60s are still there and doing very well. These facilities serve a need, and that need continues to grow on a yearly basis. That's why this is actually makes sense in this location where it would not have made sense here maybe 15 years ago. The need is there, and people's acceptance of having interior climate control as an option is growing. So I don't anticipate this building ever being anything other than self-storage. To your question in particular, it would be difficult to repurpose it for anything else other than really small apartments. And that was kind of a joke.
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm like, I can't see that.
Micro hotel.
One question I have is the amount of green space, and I have some questions about the site design and why things are laid out like there are. I think there's opportunity to up that green space number. You have greater than a 28-foot drive aisle, and it looks probably like a 32-foot drive aisle to the north, and a probably more like a 30-foot drive aisle to the south. That seems excessive to me. A standard drive aisle is 24 feet. Looking at to the left side of the page there, we have 32 feet. If we just offset that radius coming in, I think we could grab some more green space in that area. Same on the right side of the building. 30-foot drive aisle. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I will. I mean, this is preliminary, so we're perfectly fine, and I typically will work with 25-foot drive aisles. This is preliminary nature. So I agree with you, and I think we could increase some of the pockets that, especially where we have the notch we have the notch that's out of the site plan there on the southeast, the southeast corner. We can certainly add more green space in there as well.
Okay.
So we will definitely do that. We actually like it to be 25 feet because we're trying to dissuade people from trying to back in or drive into their units. And that's why I like to keep it tight. So yeah, we can definitely pick up some more green space.
Okay. I have maybe a stupid question here, but this is a 50-foot building, and I don't have floor plans here. Are there more than one level to this? I can't.
Yeah, this is a four-story. This is a four-story building.
So each level
has its own elevator stop.
Correct.
Okay.
There's two elevators.
Did not catch that. Sorry.
Two elevators, and they are freight size elevators, gurney size elevators, and they're spaced. So we're actually keeping the walking distance from any point that you would get out to less than 100 feet.
Okay. I'm relieved to hear that. I was wondering what was going on. One other comment, the fence material, what do you typically see for that? Or what are you proposing?
Well, we use a steel or aluminum fence, black coated steel fence, 2-strand with 4-inch pickets.
Okay.
And then also, if you didn't pick it up on the site plan, what I've done in the past is I step the fence periodically so we can, add some landscaping into the indentation, so we just don't have one long line of, I think these fences are obviously a lot nicer looking than black coated chain link or even galvanized chain link, but I still think breaking up that long plane is important. So if you didn't pick up on that, we were doing that on the site plan.
No, I think that's great. And then any sort of sustainable efforts you're looking at with stormwater or solar or anything else?
So the nice thing about this facility is you don't have a lot of occupancy use during the day. So the entire site is on LED lights and they're occupancy censored. So other than at certain intersections for safety where you have a night light type on, you're almost always dark inside the building. So that's a good use. That's a good, it's good sustainability. Down south and in particular states where there's decent subsidies on solar, it's very popular to put solar on the roof. We would certainly look into this if it made economic sense to the development. It certainly, at the height of 51 feet, I don't know, and it's flat in this area, I'd be hard-pressed if anybody would even see the solar on the roof if we put it there.
I don't care if I see it. I'd like to know it's there.
Yeah.
And my final comment is, I can't ignore the comment by Molly in the letter that regarding self-storage and her business, and I think that deserves a little looking into, and I don't know, what year was that letter from?
It was from '09, but
Okay.
also referenced the plan from '89, so.
Yeah.
Although it wasn't a recent email, obviously long-term plans or something that, if I have to follow it, I want other people to follow it too.
Mm-hmm, certainly.
And we appreciate that. My only comment to that would be, we were working off the 2016 comprehensive plan, and it sounds like she was being, the responses coming back were from a 1990s plan. And so I don't know if they would have come back after the 2016 plan and proposed something, if it had been different, hard to know, but we are following the 2016 comprehensive plan.
Understood. I just want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to.
I can just add from a staff level that I was not aware of that email or that correspondence, but I've certainly made note of that, and I want to just take a look into that. There's pretty good records from previous planners, so I just want to, I certainly hear that comment, and we'll take that back and look at it. Thanks.
Excellent. That's all I have.
Thank you, Rob. And with that, I'm going to go to Susan.
Yeah, I would appreciate some follow-up on that as well, but, the 1989 Broadway plan came up once before, and, it was a long time ago, and I think there is the new comprehensive plan, and I think that was something that we felt needed to be revisited as a separate piece, because it isn't necessarily still applicable. So I think that was long enough ago, but I'd still like to hear more on that. To me, this is an area very different from the Southtown area, where I really didn't feel what was being proposed fit in there, because we were trying to attract more additional retail businesses and a whole different feel for that area. This is an area that's pretty well established with destination places. The storage that's already there will certainly continue to be used. I was just with a neighbor putting some storage in, I think what was probably your property last week. But Menard's obviously very well established. The other businesses, they're on Femrite. It seems to me this is an appropriate use for this land. And like Rob, when I saw that it was executive store, that does make a difference to me also with the look, and certainly being right next to Meritor. I wouldn't want total garage type building next to that. I feel like this architecture will complement that, and I think it's an appropriate use for the area. I also know that when I was looking for temperature controlled storage several years ago, when my son was moving back to storage, it was really, I grabbed the last place in McFarland or something. I know there's a demand. So, yeah, I don't have issues with it. I think it looks good. I didn't really have questions. I don't have anything to add to what you already said, so.
Sorry, Corey?
I feel similarly. I think this proposed use in this spot is very, very different than what we were looking at the Southtown proposal, especially when looking at the number 2 for the community design district, where it is looking for economic stability and functional practicality that's compatible. So from my perspective, I agree that this seems very like a good fit for this area. And because it looks different, it doesn't have that large parking field. And when you look at that site, there's already Menards, which is a huge parking lot, and there's a pretty big lot at the health clinic. And so if this were to also have a big parking lot, that's just a lot of concrete over there. So I like that this won't have that need for as much parking. I appreciate that. I also think it looks really nice, and I like that you have the fence starting back as well, so it's not like this fenced-in property from the front. It looks nice. So I appreciate the attention to detail that you put into putting this proposal are bringing it to us. And you answered my question about how does this work? So I didn't know there were the car elevators, so I was trying to imagine, but it's like a car on a tower, so. I think it looks good.
I have one quick comment. In the evolution of the storage industry, particularly in Wisconsin, because our weather is just so crazy, from ice cold to pouring rain. I remember years ago, my grandma passed away, and so my mom and dad had to go rent a storage unit. And it was in February, and it was back up to the garage and so on and so forth. And one of the things that Brian has really educated us on as to how timely this style of storage is and how purposeful it is. So we also, as a sideline, we looked at the Shopko area for this concept, and we dismissed it. We too felt that it could be relocated somewhere else. So it's kind of interesting to hear you say that.
Thank you. Brandon?
I don't have a lot of additional comment. I would echo the sentiment about the scarcity of conditioned spaces that, yeah, if there was, there definitely is a need. I think about all of the, intended uses. The storage of recreational vehicles would be very highly sought after, and all of the development that's happening throughout Monona, that sort of temporarily, moving out of your own space while you're going through a fairly extensive remodel, I could see as being a intended use case for a long time to come, for the number of housing units that'll probably go through that kind of transformation. No, seems like an appropriate use of land. Don't have a whole lot of other comments.
Patrick?
I mean, it looks like it would work pretty well in that area. Traffic, the impact on traffic would be minimal. The building looks good. It's the right location, I think, for Monona right now. It's buffered by other commercial property. It's not going to have much of an impact on any residential properties. The landscaping would be an improvement to the site. It's a big difference between locating this has already been said, but it's a big difference between locating here versus the Southtown parcel, because obviously that's, we want to see heavier retail there and traffic. So it's not a pedestrian-friendly area either, and I think the appearance of the building would actually improve the look of that area as well. So I think it's a decent project.
Thank you. Chris?
Couldn't find my mute button, thanks. Well, when I first saw this, Bert, I gotta talk to you. I saw this and I saw you were bringing it in. I thought that you would need to reinforce your locks, because Rob Call would probably come down and drag you out of your house. He and others worked really hard on getting public storage out of there. And now I see what it is. It's totally different, but I thought, you gotta be kidding me. And you probably remember that, Bert. I mean, it was talked about a lot. I don't know if you served on CDA at the time, but in deference to the speaker that's there tonight too, Ms. Coyle, the community did not want that public storage building with its orange doors as the entry to Monona. And people say, "Oh, Monona, yeah, where all those are." And it was a big point of concern with everybody. And they worked hard, a lot of people, to get it out of there and get Meritor, which is a beautiful building, a gorgeous building. So I've got to say, I think this type of a use can be appropriate. I'm going to go back to what you said in your packet. Lots of glass and fenestration are key. A key is for it to appear like a professional building, 51 feet high. With the mass of it, it's going to look like a warehouse if we're not careful. And I think you can do better on your elevations you gave us. But I think you made a critical error when you give us your elevations. You also let Brian put in some of the things he can do. And some of the things he can do are a lot more attractive than what you're showing so far. So I think just getting a little bit of, maybe if it's getting an architectural flair involved or something, I think whatever you can do to make this look like a professional building and not a 51-foot tall warehouse, which would include not camouflaging, but deadening the garage doors so they don't stand out and different things, where you put your glass, where you put your brick. I think you can do better than the initial proposal, and I think you could do things, we probably won't get as high level as some of the things that Brian presented, but there's so awful nice designs that can be done. And when this looks like a professional building, we'll have completed that vision that everybody started on so many years ago of having this beautiful entry to Monona when you're coming down Highway 51. So I like the use a lot. I like the vision of it a lot. I like the density using it on the site. I just want to make sure that we're not creating a big warehouse with a couple of globs of glass and bricks thrown at it. I'd like to see a little more work on the architectural on it. As far as particulars, I'd like to see that buffer to the north widened out. That's awful narrow, and that really piggybacks on what Rob said. We don't need that wide of a driveway there. You can get a little more green space there, allows you a little more room to move the fence and landscaping around. Right now it's pretty narrow. One thing we also did with Meritor, and I'm sure would be required here, is we put a sidewalk across the entire frontage, and I would suspect we'll want to put a sidewalk across this entire frontage. And I think somebody's talked about the landscaping, to have some substantial landscaping, and then the end thing I'll say is I like it a lot. It just can't look like a big warehouse.
Right. Thank you, Chris. Is that it?
I have one other thing.
Yep.
It's an idea, and I won't even charge you for it. I think it would be really cool, because you have excess green space kind of on the southern property, and it goes to Unity Point, and if you've driven by there, especially from Highway 51, it's beautiful, because it's restored prairie. Instead of grow it to mow it lawn, they did a prairie restoration there, and you could wrap that right into yours, and it would create a foreground, a better landscape than you could do, with traditional landscaping. It would add to your sustainability efforts, pollinator habitat, and it's not that costly for that small of an area, and it would make you want to be a neighbor to Unity Point. You'd be sharing some really cool feature, so I would look into that.
Thank you, Rob. Anything else from the commission?
I had a couple elements from Commissioner Chapman, if I can just share those. So the first one was asking if there are rooftop units or mechanical equipment planned for the roof. And then the second, I believe related to one of the elevations. What is number 6, rain chain?
Actually, when we do the HVAC, we typically dedicate some units to do forced air, 95% efficient furnaces. If we have anything on the roof, it'll be condensing units, and we'll center them in the center of the roof. So if we need to screen them, we can, but again, I don't think anybody's going to see those. The rain screen, again, I'm a big fan of sustainability. I think the prairie plantings are great. We'll certainly talk about it. I try to, show, at least depict now in a very simple way, foundation plantings. The rain chain was, we have a canopy that hangs out over the office. And so I just thought it was kind of neat to have a rain chain coming down into the plantings that were by the office entrance, between that and the drive-in.
Thank you.
Right. Anything else from the commission? So my next question is always, do the applicants feel, do you all feel like you've gotten the feedback that you need from us and there's clarity in our feedback?
Well, I'll start.
Any other questions for the commission?
I'll start. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for your feedback. I hear everything, some of the comments that Doug has on here, like, yeah, ADA parking stall, definitely. Again, let's just overlook and doing a quick sidewalk if it's necessary. Pedestrian connections are important. Get it. Really don't see anything that we object to, and certainly we can work on the architecture. That's my comments. I'll give it over to Bert.
I think everyone offered great comments, and we'll take them and try to implement them.
Right.
That's it.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for coming. And Molly, thank you for coming as well. And with that, we'll close the pre-hearing conference.
Before you do
And
that, I
again,
do want to address Chris Homburg's comment about Rob Call. When we circled back to this notion of this use, I laughed. And I said, oh my God, we're going to get killed. This is not going to work. Monona went the extra mile to get rid of public storage. And thank God for the evolution of storage. End of story.
Great, thank you, Bert. All right, well, with that, I will bid you guys adieu. Again, I thank you for coming, and thank you for the proposal, and we'll move on in this meeting to number 8, reports of staff and commission members' staff reports. Doug?
Thank you. I'll keep it quick. A couple smaller zoning permit items expected for an upcoming meeting, most likely the March 25th meeting. I'll be reaching out just to coordinate that and confirm those. And following up on the discussion of sustainability efforts, I do now have confirmed plans for the solar array atop the pediatric dental office. So they are looking to proceed with that. As I had mentioned and was not too sure of at the last meeting, they're now moving forward with that. If I may, I'll also just loop back with the question that had come forward from a commission member regarding the bloom and some of the demolition that had taken place there. I did speak with the developer. They had Habitat for Humanity come through, take some of the fixtures pre-demolition. They also had a small local contractor come through to take appliances, including ranges, fridges, water heaters, plumbing fixtures, and several other items to be reused in other projects. The bar from Snicks was saved and is now at Fabiola's on Regent Street, although that was prior to them taking ownership of the building. And I believe that some of the concrete was also reused and repurposed with one of the local paving companies here in the Dane County area. So a couple elements, to update on the pretty significant demolition that took place up there on Monona Drive. Thanks.
Thank you, Doug. Any updates, discussions on diversity, equity, or inclusion, or on sustainability, beyond what you've already shared?
Nothing else.
Any requests of staff?
I have a,
Corinne?
yeah. I have a quick question. I'm just wondering if there has been any movement on the project next to the food fight? Have you heard anything from them?
So we've been working with them at CDA. There is a TIF element to that request.
Okay.
So we've been working with them on that and still in negotiations on that. They're looking at a very specific lease-up period. So at this point, it would most likely be spring 2025 construction. So it'll be a little quieter here for the next couple months, I would imagine, before they may return to Plan Commission. But I think generally it's signs are looking positive at this point, but it would be expecting construction in about 12 months this time next year. So,
Okay, thanks.
Assuming approvals. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Chris, did you have something as well?
Yeah, just quickly, when you mentioned the pediatric dental clinic, has anything ever happened with other dental clinic that was just down the road across Broadway?
No, it was pretty, it just went pretty quiet pretty quickly. I received a note from the architect that I think they were not looking to proceed at that point and sort of asked, all work to stop, including Viabeca review and things like that. I think we're getting pretty close to that point. So no other word at this point from that.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for Doug? Okay. With that, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thanks very much, everybody. Really appreciate your thoughtfulness as always. Have a good evening.
Good night.
out of the line since December.
Yeah.
Everybody's worried that